Have you ever wondered how your unique personality blueprint could be the key to unlocking your full leadership potential? In this episode, we are going to dive into the fascinating world of human design. And trust me, you are want to listen to this entire episode because it's going to transform your life. Welcome to Leading Intentionally, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of leadership transformation. I am Carmen Paredes, your guide in this journey, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today. In each episode, we share strategies, insights, and stories to help you drive growth, enhance workplace culture, and lead with intentionality. Whether you are a seasoned executive, an aspired leader, or just someone passionate about positivity in the workplace, this podcast is for you. Each week, I'll bring you conversations with thought leaders, experts, and trailblazers that will share with you their insights, wisdom, and experiences so that you can apply these practical tips to your leadership journey. Get ready to explore topics like inclusive leadership, women's empowerment, effective communication, and so much more. If you're ready to lead intentionally and make lasting impact in your organization, you are in the right place. Let's embark in this transformative leadership journey together. This is Leading Intentionally. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to today's episode of Leading Intentionally. I have a very dear friend with me today here. Her name is Abigail Rebecca, and she is the visibility goddess. So get ready. She's a human design Aquarian leadership guide, international speaker, and creator of the Illuminate method. At the age of 16, she had to face a life-altering decision, either to remain disempowered with a religious cult or embark on a path to freedom. I think we know which route she took. Based on 28 years of experience of mentoring thousands of leaders in Fortune 500 companies, she's created a tried and trusted method that she calls Illuminate. It helps founders, CEOs, and their teams align their business strategy to their human design, step into visibility leadership, and create extraordinary success with ease. Oh my God, Abby, I'm so excited to have you here. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really, really excited about this conversation.
So we mentioned few terms in the description and in the bio that I am absolutely positive a lot of our listeners have no idea what we're talking about. So, so I want to start obviously with how do you end up here? Let's talk about that transition out of corporate into like where you are, because I think it's important for people to know that, like me, you were once, a person who live and breathe what our listeners are going through.
Yeah, I did. I was in a corporate role for over 28 years. I always laugh actually because I accidentally fell into corporate. When I left home when I was 16, I chose freedom, and freedom to me meant I can go and do whatever I want to do. What do I want to do? And I traveled the world. I had an amazing life in my 20s. But actually, while I was traveling the world, I was running teams. I had teams of leaders. I was managing teams and operations. I came back to the UK and I kind of then just continued to do it and climbed my way up to the corporate ladder like we all have, and was working really, really hard. Didn't particularly enjoy my role. I felt very burnt out, massive imposter syndrome, completely out of my comfort zone, but just continued to do it just to prove my worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably about 10 years ago, I started to develop a really serious heart condition. And it was really scary. Several trips to A&E with a heartbeat of 220. It should be about 70.
Yeah.
And I did what, a lot of corporate people do. I just ignored it and carried on because I was like, well, I can't take any time off, and
Mhm.
I need to go back to work. So I just ignored it. And then it got to a point where it got so bad that it actually knocked me out for 2 weeks. I was in bed, on bed rest. And it was at that time that I really started to reevaluate, what do I really want to do? Like, what do I really want to do with my life? And I realized that at that point, I I really wanted to start my own business.
Mhm.
So that was really the catalyst. I left corporate. I manifested a corporate payout. I'm so proud of the fact that I did that. So I left with a nice chunk of money, and I left on really great terms. I worked for an amazing company, really amazing. It was all about me. It was like what I was going through. They didn't put me through anything. It was all about me. And yeah, I built my business. I retrained to be a personal stylist at the London College of Fashion. I set myself up as a personal stylist. Then I discovered the online business and the personal development business, and I brought my business online. And then very slowly, I've kind of developed into what I do now. And really, what I love to do is I do work predominantly with women. I have actually started working with some men, and it's been amazing. But I
Mhm.
really love to help founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, change makers to really step into their visible leadership. And one of the biggest tools that I use is human design.
Everything you said, I'm like, yes, 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 I totally relate. And I just want to say for the people who are like, visibility, who needs visibility in corporate? Oh, trust me, when you're climbing that ladder, especially if you're a woman, you should listen to the episode from a couple of weeks ago. I'm talking about women leadership and politics.
Yeah.
Visibility is one of the biggest things. You need to have a personal brand and you need to be able to make sure people see you. But now let's talk about human design, because when I discovered human design, my life literally transformed. Everything for the last 40 something years have made sense. And I just wish I would have stumbled upon this tool earlier. I'm going to confess, I actually did, but I ignored it. I thought it was crazy.
Too.
And then eventually came back and I'm like, okay, maybe I should pay attention to this thing. And it is the most transformative thing I have ever discovered. I have my own design. I know my kids' design. Everyone that I coach, I know their design because it just informs so much. But let's explain, because I'm going to assume that there is some people listening that they are like, what are they talking about? So very like high level, let's explain what human design is.
Yeah. Well, part of my design is actually taking complicated things and making them very simple and easy for people. And I think that that needs to happen with human design, because you can really go down the rabbit hole. It's very overwhelming. There's so much to learn. So basically, an introduction to it is, if you can imagine that Myers-Briggs and astrology became lovers and had a love child, that's human design.
I love
So
it.
it is a personality blueprint.
Mhm.
It is an energetic chart. It's a personality test outcome, but it's based on your astrological chart. And what I love about it, I wrote something down the other day, and I was like, I need to do a blog on this, and I need to do a video on it. It the title of it is "I Cheated on Myers-Briggs," because I did actually cheat on Myers-Briggs. I remember very clearly taking a Myers-Briggs type a personality test when I worked in corporate. And I remember all of my bosses being very, very disappointed that I came out a certain type, because I didn't fit in with their kind of definition of what a corporate leader should be, especially in their organization. So the next time I took it, I
Right.
knew what I needed to answer. I knew who I needed to be. I kind of changed into that person. And
Yes.
I think that that's one of the reasons that I became very unhappy. But you can't cheat your birth date.
I know. I know. And so I love that you said that is the combination of these two very mainstream things. And the other thing I like to say is, and I talk about this on my Tribe Talk, is that all these personality tests that we use currently in corporate, so Myers-Briggs or DISC or Enneagram, it tells you who you are right now. And some of them, the Enneagram in particular, which I used to use, tells you why you became like that. It talks about, well, you can dig into the core trauma, the core event in your life that made you become this amazing person that you're today. But obviously, we all have flaws. But human design actually tells you who you were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like, how do you merge these two worlds? Because you obviously are this wounded person. We all are wounded, by the way. But there is this blueprint to be happy and to achieve success without burning out and with ease, which is human design.
Yeah.
And so I love seriously, this is the most transformational thing. And I forgot, I was gonna start the episode saying, by the way, Carmen, 5-1 splenic projector, just to pick your curiosity, because that's who I am in human design. And Abby is also a projector. We're going to explain what these things are. But Abby, what are your numbers? What are your lines in human design?
I'm a 4-6 emotional projector.
So you see that we are both projectors, but we are different. So we're similar but different at the same time. So since we went into like projector, let's talk about the 5 types of human design.
Yeah, so there are 5 types of human design, and each human design has a certain energy and a strategy attached to it. And the strategy is really to help you be able to navigate your life with ease and flow instead of feeling like you're just pushing against the current all the time. Okay, so it's really to help you be able to manage your time, your energy more effectively, build better relationships, and ultimately feel some kind of level of happiness within your life. So there is manifesting generators, manifestors, reflectors, and projectors. And every single human design has a different strategy. And you can actually use the way that you are feeling to tune into whether you're aligning to your strategy or not. Mm-hmm. We are very deeply conditioned by society, by education, by our corporate roles, by our parents, that we need to be a certain way in order to be an effective and successful leader. And the majority of that narrative is around, you need to go and make things happen. You need to initiate. You need to get the ball rolling. I mean, how many times have you heard that? Let's get the ball rolling
right now. Literally have goosebumps, because that's what it is. Like, society conditions us to be a generator type, either generators or manifestor generators.
Yeah. And we're not all designed to be like that. So if I look back, and I know you're really going to relate to this, Carmen, because we've spoken about it before. When I worked in corporate, one of my most enjoyable jobs within corporate is that I used to head up the training and development department of all of the customer facing staff and the leadership team. We were a big European company, so we had a lot of leaders. So my team were responsible for going in there and doing the leadership training in-house. And we used to bring people in as well to train. If I'd have known about human design, the whole company would have known. I would have brought it in, because it really is so impactful and so incredible, because what it does is it helps you to stop the comparison game, stop trying to be that certain person in order to be successful. And actually what you can do is you can start to change the culture of the organization. You know, we're so fixated on performance, about bottom line, about the numbers and the figures. But I think now, even more so now, we're really looking at how can we support our teams? How can we nurture them? How can we retain them? Now, that's a great money saving exercise. How can I retain my leaders? How can I empower my leadership team? Human design does all of that.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I actually, in my leadership career, by the way, the thing I enjoyed the most was to lead, which makes sense based on my design. But I was doing all the right things without actually knowing that I was doing all the right things for them, not for me. Like I was treating myself like I was a manifesto generator, even though I'm a projector. But because I'm very intuitive, my design, I'm a splenic projector, so my I always have the gut feeling, right? Like I always my intuition, and I have learned to listen to it. So it's always been something very acute in me. Um, I was able to somehow realize this is not the right job for this person. Let me help them get in the thing that makes them happy, the thing that makes them thrive. And because I did that and I took the time to get to know them and care about how they felt about the job and develop the right skills and pathway for them, they stay with me. And when I left, a lot of them left because they didn't have that. And so it is definitely a very good retention um, tool. And the cost of one of the reasons people leave companies is definitely because of their bosses, right? But also burnout.
Mm.
And when you are working or living your entire life, because it's not just your work life, your professional life, but your entire life in a different design, then you can survive long. I mean, like I am shocked I made it 47 years
Yeah.
living as a manifesto generator. No wonder why I had, bleeding ulcers, migraine, rashes. I mean, you had a heart condition. It's because my body was saying, hello,
Yeah.
how
I
long are
look
you going to do this for?
It's crazy, right? I look back and I'm like, at one point, I remember going into a team that didn't exist. So I had to I recruited a team of 12 leaders, and then I was multitasking like 9 really big projects.
Mhm, mhm.
And for me, that wasn't it just didn't come naturally to me. But then I was beating myself up going, well, I can't, clearly I'm not cut out for this role, I can't do it. But actually, if I'd known at that point that I was a projector, I would have looked at things a little bit differently. But it was interesting when you were saying that you develop your teams, because that's something that I really used to love to do, and that's why I'm so passionate about visibility. And you said about visibility in the workplace, it's so important. So I used to really love to develop the people within my team, people that had been overlooked for years
Mhm,
for promotion, and I used to empower them to be visible
yes.
so that they could then be recognized, because it's not that they weren't being promoted because they weren't able to do the job. They weren't being promoted because they weren't being seen. Nobody
Yes.
knew about them.
Yes.
So I was like, come on, let's build up your confidence. Let's get your personal brand ready and let's get you seen. I used to take people to meetings. I'd take them to head office all the time. And that's why I do what I do now, because I'm like, okay, I did that naturally in corporate, so now I do it in my own business.
Yeah. I mean, there was one particular case, an employee that I had. When I met him the first time, he was probably a C minus student worker, barely, he did his job, but nothing else, nothing more. Always in a bad mood, not very pleasant to be around, quite frankly. Um, that was 15 years ago. It took me time because I was also finding my own leadership style and all that. But eventually, he went to different departments in the company and came back to me twice. The last time he came back, um, I was very mature in my leadership style. Again, didn't know human design, but somehow knew some of these things. And I realized he was miserable because he hated his job. And so we work out a plan to find a pathway that will light his fire. And I knew at the time he was an Enneagram 1 perfectionist. So that's a good attribute to have when you know how it triggers you, right? And so, anyway, long story short, the guy is the director now. He has a team. He's so successful. He's definitely an A plus contributor to the company. And you know what? He recognizes that it was what I did for him. And I have this thing. I always have it in my desk because it makes me cry every time I read it. Like he gave me this paperweight, saying that I was able to do more for him professionally than anyone because I was able to see through his bullshit. Basically, that's what it says.
Mm.
And that story, I mean, like that's what you can do with human design. I mean, like, again, I did that without even knowing what I was doing. And I just cannot wait to actually do it like a large scale now that I know what I'm doing, right? I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you feel that there are types of human design that are more adapt to be leaders than others? Or is it just the leadership style that they all have? And can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's just the leadership style.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's so great about human design, because there's no good or bad. There's no right or wrong. There's nothing to be fixed. It's just your leadership style. So I always talk about, like, say, for example, you're managing a project and you have the 5 leadership styles that are kind of within that project. The
Mhm.
manifester, which is the only human design type that is actually designed to initiate. Only 9% of the population, listen up, people, only 9% of the population are designed to self-initiate. The manifester gets the ball rolling. The manifester gets the project going. And then the manifester can then hand over to the generators and manifesting generators, who have this incredible sacral energy, and they're able to project manage it, and they're able to push it through and finish it and complete it. And their beautiful energy will attract other people in. Like, come and join us, like, come and join the project, and they'll really make it happen. The projectors are there guiding the process. They're not managing the project, nor is the manifester. The projectors are there guiding it through. And then the the reflectors, that's only 1% of the population. So real unicorns, but there will be reflectors that work within your organization. And maybe at the moment, even with a reflector, you might not necessarily recognize a reflector's leadership skills, but they are incredible leaders. They act as a mirror for us.
Mhm.
So you can actually sense check things off a reflector, and they'll be able to kind of like mirror back whether the project is on track or not. All of these wonderful components come together. The manifester is not a better leader than the generator or the manifesting generator. The projector is not a better leader. The reflector is not a better leader. But what happens is that they all come together
You have a role.
and they collaborate and they create an amazing project, because they are staying in their lane. They're not competing with one another. They
Mhm.
recognize their natural tendencies and their gifts and their leadership style, and they use it appropriately. Imagine if all of your team, and especially your leadership team, were aware of this. Imagine what would happen in your corporation with this awareness.
So I just had this vision of a symphony, right? Like you are in the opera or you are in a Broadway show and you have the orchestra playing, right? Every instrument has a moment to shine and a role to play in that beautiful orchestration. Imagine if the clarinet and the viola want to play at the same time when it's not their turn. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Mhm.
And so, you're just talking, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a great example. And the other example that came to me, because this happened to me all the time. And so, because manifestos are only 9%, I am pretty sure everyone that's listening, mostly everyone, is going to relate to what I'm going to say. Have you ever been in a meeting where you have a great idea and you share your idea, but nobody asks you to share your idea, but you share your idea because it's great, it's going to save the world, or it's going to move the project forward or something, and then you are totally dismissed, but then someone else said the same thing you said and they get all the credit? Yeah, that just tells you right there, they are manifestors and you're not.
Such a great example.
Well, I lived that my entire life. And it was so frustrating. And so it gets into, let's talk about the strategies right now. Let's talk about the strategies, because it gets into, for me as a projector, that totally dim my strategy. and my frequency for success, right? Because I felt rejected. And when I felt rejected, I couldn't step into my strategy for success because I, as a projector, need to wait. Yes, I know people are going to be like, what? Wait for the invitation. So, since now I'm opening the can of worms to all those things, can you share with us, I know you can translate very easily, but can you share with us in a very understandable way, what are the strategies for each of the types?
Yeah. So manifestors, as we've already discussed, 9% of the population, they are the only human design type that is designed to self-initiate. But the strategy for a manifestor is that they must inform.
Mm-hmm.
So they can go and they can like get that ball rolling, but they need to be like, hey, just to give you heads up, this is what I'm going to do. If they don't do that, they have a tendency to be blocked. So what a lot of manifestors do is they're like, well, if I share it with people, they stop me from doing it. So I'm just going to go over there and do it on my own. Okay, so as soon as you start to recognize that you need to inform, people will step out of the way and you can move forward with peace. And that's really what a manifestor wants. Just wants a peaceful life to be able to go forward and make things happen. The generators and manifesting generators are two different human design types, but at this higher level, the strategy is the same. And the strategy is to wait, just to wait to respond to something or someone. So instead of like having an idea in that meeting and going, hey, I've got an idea, actually just wait and then kind of react to something. Something will come up that you can then respond to, and you'll find that your opinion and your idea will be then recognized instead of either ignored or dismissed. And there's a real feeling of satisfaction when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
The projector, yes, as you quite rightly say, Carmen, is designed to be invited in. Now, I'm sure if you're a projector, my first reaction was like, well, how on earth am I going to be able to run a business?
Oh yeah, first I'm like, F that.
Passive energy. Hello. I'm not waiting around for an invitation. But actually, that's a really great example of what you said in the meeting. I think about all the times, obviously I was in back-to-back meetings when I was in corporate. Of course I was, right? So when I was in my back-to-back all-day meetings, I would be like, well, I've got to speak first. I've got to be the person that like initiates, because otherwise I'm not going to be seen as a leader. But actually, when I tried to do that, it was almost like a needy energy. It was like, look at me. I've got this idea over here. And it was, my ideas were not taken seriously. Now that I know about human design, I love this, like the experimentation. Just sit back and be waited to be invited in. It's not passive energy. People will recognize you. You will be invited in. Carmen, what's your opinion on this? Carmen, did you have an idea about
And
it?
it feels so good because one of the things I've been doing in my journey of deconditioning is to experiment and start noticing how it feels when I do this or do that. And so at first I was like, there's no way I'm waiting. But then now that I had this awareness that this was happening, I started noticing that if I didn't wait, it felt bad because I didn't get the recognition. But if I wait, right? And wait could be, it's not like you're sitting in the couch doing nothing. You're doing your thing. And then someone is going to recognize your genius, because projectors are very smart. You're going to recognize your genius and say, hey, Abby, what do you think about this? And then they are all ears because they want to know what you think about it. And then you can go like, all ear, right? And feels so great. And you know what happens when it feels great? When you have things that feel great, right? You can manifest anything you want.
Exactly. And if we want to go that, so projectors, that's the strategy. And then reflectors, waiting like 28 days, like it's a whole moon cycle. Now we are going into the realms of, maybe we're going out of the corporate realms and into the more spiritual realms. we're not talking about making decisions like, what am I going to have for dinner? Like, these are, other things. But with reflectors, it really helps you to do this, because you need to really wait and kind of work with the cycles. But yes, you're right. When we are feeling like, as a projector, if we're feeling successful as a manifesting generator, if we feel satisfied, we are able to then manifest a lot easier. So this is totally aligned to manifesting success, recognition, like whatever you want to create in your lives.
And in case someone is like, well, what is this manifestation? Well, if you want a promotion, if you want that next title, if you want a raise, that's bringing that into your life is manifesting. So everyone is manifesting all the time, 24/7. It's a matter of whether you are aware or you're doing consciously. But I think this is a good time to, because people are probably like, oh my God, I want to know what I am, and it's like, how do I get my chart? So I'm pretty sure they can get them in your website, and all that information is going to be in the description. But I want you to tell us a little bit about, if someone is curious, like, I want to know what's my human design, how do they go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you just go over to my website, which is abigailrebecca.com, you just click on the link at the top that says look at my chart, and you can do that for free. And I've got loads of free resources. I've got blogs. I've got all sorts of things going on my website. So you can go and start to investigate a little bit.
I want to prepare everybody, because I don't want them to go like, oh my God, what is this? So this, where's the camera? That's my chart right there. So it's a very complicated chart, but don't be frightened, because you're in the best hands that I know, Abby, and she will walk you through it, and you'll be able to understand. It takes time to digest all the information, but I promise you, it is worth it. I actually, now I'm to the point where I don't interact with people without trying to figure out what the design is. And if I have a relationship close enough that I can ask them for the right information to get it, I do it. I have an app on my phone, so wherever I go, I'm talking to people on coffee breaks or whatever. I'm just like, oh, I think this is your human design. And then they get curious, and then I put it and I give them to them. But it has changed even the relationship with my children. I have a generator, a manifestor generator, and a projector in my house. They all have challenges of communication, because we all are different and the same. And just to give you an example of how you can apply this at work, my son, who is a generator, the way that I have to communicate with him has to be with questions that he has to respond yes or no. But because I'm a projector, I like to hypothesize about everything and anything, because I can process all that. And so I used to ask him, how was school? And I can never get an answer. I got a grunt. So once I learned about how to communicate with generators, I'll ask very specific questions. Oh, another one was like, what do you want for dinner, right? Like, they can process that. But if I said, do you want spaghetti or you want steak? Always get an answer, right? Then with my daughter, who is also a projector, the challenge that was there is that we both know that we know it all. And so trying to tell her what to do was detrimental to our relationship, because she can figure it out. She wants to be the guide, and I want to be the guide. So now we don't guide each other. And I have shared this with them, and they are not very interested in learning much yet. But, they have seen the change. And when they ask me like, oh, where is this? Like, how are you changing that? I'm like, well, because I know this is the way you process information. So this is how it's going to help you, very generic, with your team and your dynamics at the office. But why don't you share with us more practical ways that you probably have seen, with all the clients that you coach in this?
It's a really good example. I mean, if you think what you've just used there about how you ask questions to a generator or manifesting generator, is very different how you would ask a question for a projector or a reflector or a manifester. Once you understand the human design charts of your team, you really, really understand how to deeply connect with them through effective communication. And if you think about so many of the issues and problems that you might face with team members and managing their performance. And it all comes down to relationships and communication. If you can create real strong lines of communication with your team, if you can look after your team, if you can show your team that you appreciate them. You know, I always remember that quote by Richard Branson, like, look after your team, they'll look at, so if you look after your people,
Yeah,
they'll look after your business,
yeah.
your clients, sorry, you look after your people, they'll look after your clients or customers, and then they'll look after your business. It all comes in with that customer care from within.
Mm-hmm.
So human design really teaches us about building relationships, how we effectively communicate with one another. And that can be applied to anything. It can be applied to relationships with your life partner. It can be applied to relationships with your business partner, relationships with your children, relationships with your team members, relationship with your superiors, with your teams, with your friends. All of this is about building relationships and effective communication. And human design is a really incredible tool to be able to do that.
Perfectly said. Beautiful. So, Abby, how are you helping companies, teams, leaders to incorporate this into their everyday?
Wow. For the last 7 years, I have dealt predominantly, some have kind of slipped through, but predominantly with female entrepreneurs, founders, business owners who want to really know that they need to go out there and be more visible in order to grow their brand and to position themselves as an expert in their field, and then obviously then be able to kind of grow and build their business and create success from that. But towards the end of the year, I was really starting to be drawn to corporate and really thinking about how can we incorporate human design into leadership training. And it's one of the things that I was really, really passionate about when I worked in corporate. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to play around with it a little bit. I started talking to a few people. I'm still connected to so many people when I worked in corporate. And we've actually delivered some training now into corporate workshops, leadership workshops, really learning about human design. And then also I love to run retreats for female leaders. And our retreats are just incredible. I mean, we've both been on a retreat together, right? It just what happens when you take yourself out of the day-to-day business and you can really focus on yourself and your personal development. And I've always noticed that when I've run retreats for women for years now in beautiful villas all around the world. And one of the things that really stands out for me is the relationships that is built with those women. And I was like, okay, what if we brought leadership teams together, female leadership teams together, and actually looked at that working together and being and retreat together and that relationship building. So that's something that we're going to be launching this year as well. So I'm really, really, really excited about it. Just to see, what can happen. So I want to come back into corporate, but in a different capacity.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to hear all the amazing impact that this work is going to bring, because I know it, because it's changed my life. And Abby is amazing. I love her energy. She's loving, smart, caring, all the things. And so I totally vouch for her. And you're gonna have all that in your website, right? So when we put the description, your website, then people will be able to get you more information.
The retreats are on there, the workshops, all the human design stuff. Not specifically for corporate, but you can always reach out to me. I'm very easy to find if you want to discuss that.
Perfect. So Abby, what would be something that we can share that will be impactful to kind of put a little bow with the episode? Because we can talk about this for years, people. Like we just literally pick at the bag so you can have, hopefully like get you interested about this. But I promise you there's so much to cover. We can have a whole podcast just talking about human design. You should do that. Like, because there's so much to go into. But it's definitely something that if you are curious at all, follow that intuition, because it might be your time to discover it. So with that, like what could be like something impactful that we can share to close it?
I had a hot chocolate with an amazing woman today, and she was sharing her background with me, and she also comes from corporate, very dynamic, high level corporate leadership roles. She really surprised me as well for saying that she used to be a flamenco dancer and dance on stages and have stage productions and tour all around the world with these productions. I was like, hello, teach me flamenco. Anyway, she was telling me that all through her life, in this incredible life, she's had this imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, not worried about what other people think, just worry about what other people think of her. And we were having a discussion about that. And I said, you know what, once you really start to accept yourself for who you are, stop comparing yourself to other people and beating yourself up, because you'll never be like them. This is what I love about human design.
It gives you permission to be you.
Exactly. It helps us to really accept who we are. We don't need to change ourselves. We don't need to be like this person anymore. We don't have to lie on a Myers-Briggs test. We can just accept ourselves for who we are and be really seen and appreciated for that. And I just want to invite every single one of your audience to really lean into that. Who am I? Let's get to learn about myself is the best subject in the world. And then I can really start to accept and appreciate myself. And I'll tell you something, as soon as you start to appreciate yourself, the whole world appreciates you. This is an inner job. It's inner work. You show up in a different way. You step into that visibility and that leadership. That's how other people will see you. It's very, very simple. Just change the perception you have about yourself and things will start to show up. Incredible things will start to show up in your life.
Bravo. That's beautiful. I don't have anything else to say. So thank you. Because that was beautifully said. And I this is a transformational thing that everyone needs to be exposed. And this is my way to sharing it with an audience that perhaps is not so into things that are not mainstream. But the reality is that it will become mainstream. I am absolutely sure of that. And this is the time. This is the time to take control of your life, apply self-compassion to yourself, and show up in a different light so others can recognize you for who you are. And you don't need to keep wearing that mask that you've been wearing for 20 years or 40 years or 60 years, because it just doesn't feel good. You can be yourself. And this podcast is about leading with intention. And what other way to lead with intention that actually starting to look inward so you can actually shine your light outwards. So thank you so much, Abby, for being in the podcast today. And remember, until next episode, lead with intention. Bye-bye.